I never used to care much about my wife's phone. It was just another part of her, like her purse or the necklace she never took off. It was always near her, always lighting up with messages and notifications, but I never thought twice about it. Maybe that was my first mistake, trusting her blindly. Lena had always been into fitness, but lately, it had turned into something else. Obsession. It started small, an extra hour at the gym, a new protein powder, a growing collection of leggings and sports bras that seemed to multiply overnight. At first, I supported her. Why wouldn't I? She wanted to be healthier, stronger. I admired her discipline. But then it changed. She stopped coming to bed at the same time as me, staying up late scrolling through fitness accounts. She spent more time on her phone than she did talking to me. Our dinners together turned into her taking pictures of her food before eating. In the gym, it wasn't just a part of her routine anymore. It was her world. She started filming every workout, posting progress pictures, writing long captions about motivation and transformation. Her social media went from casual updates to full-on influencer mode. I wasn't stupid. I knew people liked attention, but something about the way she soaked up the validation from strangers made my stomach turn. That's when I noticed his name. At first, it was buried under dozens of other comments. Just another guy leaving fire emojis under her squat videos. But he kept coming back. Vlad Morozov. The name meant nothing to me at first. Another fitness guy. They were all the same, chiseled jaw, abs that looked carved out of stone, the kind of cocky smirk that women seem to lose their minds over. I saw his comments, then I saw her replies. Playful, familiar. Then came the messages. I wasn't looking for them. I wasn't snooping. But one night, Lena was in the shower, and her phone lit up on the nightstand. My eyes flicked toward the screen. Missed you today. Hope everything's okay. A chill ran down my spine. Mister? I tried to ignore it, but my hands moved before my brain could stop them. I picked up her phone. The screen was still unlocked. Curiosity? No, this was something else. A gut feeling. A warning. And the second I opened their chat, I knew. It wasn't innocent. The messages started off about workouts, gym routines, macros, protein intake. But the tone shifted. Flirty. Teasing. You my favorite client. Wish I could see you tonight. I bet your husband doesn't push you this hard. It felt like a fist in my stomach. But the words weren't the worst part. No, the worst part came when I scrolled up. The pictures. At first glance, they weren't anything outright damning. No nudes, nothing that would get flagged if posted online. But I knew my wife. I knew how she posed when she wanted attention. And these pictures? They weren't meant for just anyone. Tight leggings. A sport bra pulled just low enough to tease. That specific look in her eyes. I had seen that look before. It was the same look she used to give me when she wanted me to reach for her in the middle of the night. The kind of look that wasn't just casual. This wasn't about fitness. This wasn't about progress. This was for him. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my breath coming too fast, too sharp. My hand started shaking, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. My vision tunneled. How long? How long had I been a fool? I forced myself to keep scrolling, my chest tightening with every message. I wanted to find something, some kind of proof that this wasn't what it looked like, that maybe I was overreacting. But I didn't find anything that gave me hope. You always look so good after a workout. I love seeing you first thing in the morning. Maybe one day, we won't have to sneak around. A low, bitter laugh escaped my throat. Sneak around? I was still sitting there when the water shut off, still gripping her phone when I heard the sound of the towel rack shifting, the faint padding of her bare feet on the bathroom floor. The door opened, and a wave of steam followed her into the room. She was humming, rubbing her damp hair with a towel, wrapped in nothing but one of my old t-shirts. She looked normal, like nothing had changed, but everything had. Her eyes flicked to me, then to the phone in my hands. I saw it happen, the exact moment realization hit her. The blood drained from her face. The color faded from her lips. Her fingers tightened around the towel. She didn't even try to ask what I saw. She knew. And just like that, everything between us changed. Lena didn't speak at first. She just stood there, frozen, her eyes darting between my face and the phone in my hand. Water dripped from the ends of her damp hair, soaking into the collar of my old t-shirt, but she didn't move to dry it. I could see the gears turning in her head, calculating, searching for the right words, maybe for the right lie. I felt something inside me snap. I stood up slowly, gripping her phone so tight it was a miracle the screen didn't crack. My entire body felt wired, coiled like a spring ready to explode. Every muscle tense, every breath sharp, every heartbeat like a war drum in my chest. You. That was all I got out before my voice failed me. I had so many words, rage, betrayal, disgust, but none of them seemed big enough to hold what I felt. It was like trying to shove an inferno into a matchbox. Lena took a small step back, pressing herself against the bathroom door. She still hadn't said anything, but her lips parted, her throat bobbing like she was struggling to swallow something bitter. Then finally, in a voice so soft, I almost laughed at the sheer audacity of it. What did you see? I let out a breath that felt like smoke in my throat. What did I see? I repeated, my voice dangerously low. I lifted the phone, shaking it slightly for emphasis. Enough. Her face crumpled for just a second, the mask slipping. But she caught herself fast. Too fast. Look, it's not what you think. And there it was. The excuses. A bitter laugh tore its way out of my throat before I could stop it. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to force down the heat rising in my chest. My skin felt too tight, my fists clenched and unclenched like my body was trying to find an outlet for the storm inside me. Now what I think? Did she really believe I was that stupid? I read the messages, Lena. My voice was eerily calm, even to my own ears. Too calm. The kind of calm that wasn't safe. I saw the pictures. She inhaled sharply, but I wasn't finished. I saw how he talks to you. I saw how you talk to him. I took a slow step forward, and she pressed herself harder against the door, like she could melt through it and escape. So go ahead. Explain it to me. Tell me what I think this is. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her hands gripped the towel like it was a lifeline. Caught. Cornered. She started, but the words seemed to get stuck in her throat. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. I waited. Seconds stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I could hear the tick of the bedside clock, the dripping of water from her hair onto the floor, the unsteady rise and fall of her chest. Then she sighed, squeezing her eyes shut for a brief moment before looking at me again. It's nothing, okay? She said, forcing a weak laugh that sounded too brittle to be real. Vlad, he's just a friend, a trainer. He's helping me with my workouts, that's all. I felt my fingers curl around the phone again. A trainer? I had to breathe through my nose to keep from throwing her damn phone across the room. Friends, I echoed. That's what you call it. She nodded quickly, too quickly. Yes. I mean, sure, maybe we flirt a little, but that's just how he is. He's like that with everyone. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. Oh, really? I tilted my head, my lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. So he calls all his clients baby in private messages? Tells them he misses them. Says he wishes he could see them at night. Lena flinched. Just barely. But I saw it. I took another step closer, and she turned her head away, staring at the floor like a guilty child. That's just how he talks. Her voice was thinner now, losing confidence. She was scrambling. It doesn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to punch a hole through the wall. I wanted to throw her damn phone in her face and watch it shatter the way everything else between us had. Instead, I exhaled slowly through my nose. And the pictures? She blinked. What? I held up the phone, scrolling to the one that made my stomach churn the hardest. The one where she was standing in front of the gym mirror, arching her back just enough to make her figure pop, her eyes heavy-lidded, lips parted. Not for a progress update. Not for her followers. For him. I turned the screen toward her, and her entire body went still. Her lips parted slightly, and for a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt, regret, shame. But then she straightened, her expression hardening. It's just a picture. My vision blurred at the edges. Just a picture. Just a trainer. Just flirting. Just nothing. I let out a harsh breath and took a slow step back, rubbing a hand down my face. My skin was burning, my blood boiling in my veins. She was really going to do this. She was really going to sit there and try to tell me, to my face, that I was overreacting, that I was imagining things, that it was just some innocent back and forth with a guy who clearly wanted more than just gym advice. Hatred curled inside my chest like smoke from fire. Not just for him, not just for her, but for myself, for being blind, for ignoring the signs, for letting myself believe, for even a second, that I wasn't just another fool who got played. I dropped her phone onto the bed like it was something disgusting, like it was covered in filth. Lena exhaled like she'd been holding her breath, but I wasn't done. Not even close. I turned and walked to the closet, yanking open the door so hard it nearly came off the hinges. She jumped at the sound, her hands tightening around the towel. What were you doing? I didn't answer. I grabbed the nearest bag, one of those expensive leather duffels I bought years ago, but never used. Then I started throwing things inside. Clothes, shoes, whatever I could grab. She took a hesitant step forward. Wait. I cut her off with a glare so sharp it could have drawn blood. For the first time, she looked scared. Good. I didn't care where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay here. Not tonight. Not with her. Lena was saying something. I could hear her voice in the background, rising and falling, words spilling out like water from a broken dam. Excuses, pleas, justifications. None of them mattered. I wasn't listening. My hands moved on their own, grabbing clothes from the closet, shoving them into the duffel bag without a second thought. The anger in my chest had settled into something colder now. Not the sharp, immediate heat of a fire, but something more dangerous. A slow burn. A smoldering rage that wasn't going anywhere. Will you just stop for a second? Lena's voice cracked as she stepped closer. You're being irrational. I froze mid-motion. Rational. She wanted to talk to me about being rational. After everything I just saw, a sharp laugh tore out of me, humorless and dry. I turned to face her, taking in the sight of her standing there, her wet hair dripping onto my floor, my old t-shirt hanging loose over her body like she hadn't just spent the last few months undressing herself in her messages to another man. Irrational? I repeated, my voice low, steady. Dangerous. She swallowed, her eyes flicking to the duffel bag. You're just upset right now, okay? You need to calm down. Don't, I said sharply. Her mouth snapped shut. I could see it in her eyes, the way she was choosing her next words carefully, trying to find the right combination to control the situation, to control me. But the difference between the man I was 5 minutes ago and the man I was now, I wasn't playing her game anymore. I zipped up the bag in one violent motion and threw it over my shoulder, brushing past her without another glance. Where are you even going? She asked, her voice thin, cracking at the edges. I didn't answer, because the truth was I didn't know. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a destination. I just knew I couldn't be here. Not with her. Not in this house that suddenly felt too small, too suffocating, like the walls had closed in the moment I read those messages. Come on, don't do this, Lena pressed, trailing after me as I stalked down the hallway. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I came to a dead stop. My fingers tightened around the strap of the duffel bag. Nothing. I turned slowly, my eyes locking onto hers. She had the nerve to look frustrated, like I was the one ruining things. This is nothing to you? My voice was quiet, but it wasn't calm. It was the kind of quiet that came before something violent. You flirt with some guy behind my back. You send him pictures. You let him talk to you like you're his, and you think this is nothing. She hesitated, for just a second, and I saw it. The flicker of panic, of realization that she'd said the wrong thing. I didn't. She ran a hand through her hair, exhaling sharply. Look, I didn't cheat, okay? That word. That damn word. As if cheating was only defined by the physical. As if the months of emotional intimacy she built with another man, the secret messages, the stolen moments, the connection she shared with him that she no longer shared with me. As if that wasn't betrayal. I took a slow step forward, and she took a step back. You didn't cheat, I repeated, tilting my head slightly. So tell me, Lena, what do you think this is? Because I'm really damn curious. She opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes darted to the floor. That's what I thought, I muttered. I turned again and kept walking. Her panic must have spiked because suddenly she was in front of me, blocking the door. Wait, just talk to me, she pleaded. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're acting like I had an affair or something. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. She still didn't get it. I stared at her, taking in the way she stood in front of the door, like she could physically keep me here. Like if she just said the right thing, I'd drop the bag, sit down, let her explain away everything I saw. I shouldered past her. She grabbed my arm. Will you just listen to me? She snapped. The contact set something off inside me. I ripped my arm away, harder than I intended, and she stumbled back slightly. For a second, a flash of something passed across her face. Fear? Shock. I didn't know, and I didn't care. Because I was done. I grabbed the door handle, yanked it open, and stepped out onto the porch. The night air was cold. I barely felt it. Where are you going? She demanded, standing in the doorway now, arms crossed over her chest like she had any damn right to be angry. I turned back, looking at her one last time. And then I said the only thing that came to mind. I don't know. Then I walked to my car, threw the bag in the passenger seat, and drove. I didn't look back. I drove without thinking. The road stretched ahead, dark and empty, headlights carving a path through the night. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and shadow, but I barely saw it. My grip on the steering wheel was tight, fingers stiff with the kind of tension that didn't fade with time. I should have been thinking about where to go, but my mind wasn't cooperating. All I could see were those messages. All I could hear was her voice, lying in my face. It's nothing. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I didn't cheat. I let out a bitter laugh, short and sharp, barely more than a breath. She really thought I'd buy that. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how easily she dismissed it, how quickly she twisted it around, like I was the one overreacting, like her lies didn't matter as long as she didn't get caught in bed with him. But what did she think was going to happen? That I'd read those messages, see those pictures, and just shrug it off? That I'd sit down, let her bat her eyelashes, let her feed me some pretty little excuse, and then pretend I wasn't seeing my wife through a stranger's eyes? Because that's what she'd become. A stranger. A woman I didn't recognize anymore. I gritted my teeth and pressed down on the gas, speeding past a red light without caring. My heart was still hammering in my chest, adrenaline making my fingers itch for something to hit, something to break. I wanted to go home, but I didn't have a home anymore. Not with her. Not in that house where she had spent the last few months sneaking around, laughing with another man behind my back, sending him pictures that should have been mine. I slammed my hand against the steering wheel with a curse. The worst part? The part that made me sick to my damn stomach? I wasn't even surprised. I'd seen the signs. The late-night texts. The way she suddenly became obsessed with looking perfect all the time. The gym sessions that got longer and longer. And I ignored it. I let her play me for a fool. I clenched my jaw, breathing hard through my nose. I needed to do something. Sitting in this car, simmering in my own rage, wasn't going to cut it. I needed a plan. A destination. A next move. I glanced at my phone. No new messages, no missed calls. Not from Lena, anyway. She knew better than to push me right now. But that didn't mean she wasn't waiting. I could feel it. The way she was probably pacing around the house, staring at her phone, debating what to say next. Would she apologize? Beg? Or would she stick to her story, keep doubling down, convince herself that I was the bad guy for leaving? I didn't know. And I didn't care. What I did care about was him. Vlad. The fitness guru. The personal trainer. The guy who thought he could talk to my wife like that. Joke about sneaking around, make her laugh in ways I hadn't seen in months. My fingers twitched against the wheel. I pulled over. The engine hummed as I sat there, staring out at the empty street. My heart was still pounding, my thoughts moving too fast to catch. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed my phone and did the one thing I hadn't done yet. I looked him up. His profile came up instantly. The same cocky smirk, the same sculpted body, the same curated life designed to make women like Lena fall all over themselves for his attention. He was local. Not just local. He worked at the gym Lena went to. The same place where she swore she was just working out. Where she spent hours perfecting herself for a man who wasn't me. A muscle in my jaw ticked. I scrolled through his posts. His captions were exactly what I expected. Grind now, celebrate later. The body achieves what the mind believes. Surround yourself with winners, or don't complain when you lose. But it was the comments that set my teeth on edge. Women fawning over him. The way Lena fawned over him. The way she looked at me years ago. I clenched my fist. I had two choices. One, let it go. Walk away. Pretend I never saw those messages and move on. Or, two, make sure he understood exactly what kind of man he was dealing with. I clicked on his most recent post. It was a gym selfie, of course. Shirtless. Flexing. Like a damn peacock showing off his feathers. I stared at it for a long time. Then I went to my contacts and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I called someone. Someone who'd understand exactly why I was this close to breaking something. Someone who'd know how to handle this in a way that wouldn't end with me in handcuffs. The line rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Well, didn't think I'd ever hear from you again. I exhaled, gripping the phone tighter. Yeah, well, shit happens. There was a pause, then a low chuckle. Sounds like you need me. I do. What's the problem? I looked back at the picture of Lad, my jaw tightening. I need to have a little conversation with someone. The engine idled beneath me, a steady hum in the quiet night. My fingers tapped against the wheel as I listened to the voice on the other end of the phone. A conversation, huh? The guy chuckled, the sound low and amused. You never did like talking much. So what kind of conversation are we talking about? I exhaled through my nose, staring out at the empty street ahead. The kind that gets a point across. Another pause, then a knowing hum. I see. The man on the other end was Eric. A name I hadn't said in a long time. A name I'd buried with the part of myself I swore I was done with. But tonight I was that man again. And Eric? He was the kind of guy who didn't ask too many questions. Where do I find him? He asked casually, like we were talking about meeting up for a drink. I glanced down at the gym's address on Vlad's latest post. Gym called Titan Fitness. He works there. Eric whistled. Damn, you got a real cliche on your hands, huh? Wife's trainer? You sure you don't want to just hit the guy with a lawsuit instead? I clenched my jaw, staring at Vlad's smug face on my screen. No, I didn't want lawyers. I didn't want papers. I wanted something else. Something he'd feel. I took a breath, steadying myself. I just need him to understand something. Right? Eric drawled. And if he doesn't? My fingers tightened around the phone. Eric laughed. Yeah, that's what I thought. He wasn't wrong. I wasn't coming for a talk. I was coming for a reckoning. Back to the house of lies. I hung up and drove. Not to the gym. Not yet. I needed something first. When I pulled back into my driveway, the lights inside were still on. She was waiting. Of course she was. I killed the engine and sat there for a second, gripping the wheel. I should have felt something. Hesitation. Sadness. A sliver of doubt. But all I felt was a slow-burning hatred. I opened the car door, stepped out, and shut it behind me with enough force to rattle the windows. The moment I walked inside, she was there, standing in the middle of the living room, arms crossed over her chest, her face set in something between frustration and desperation. I barely looked at her. I went straight for the cabinet near the hallway. She followed me. Where did you go? I didn't answer. She grabbed my arm. You can't just. I pulled away, turning to face her one last time. You think this is over, Lena? My voice was steady. Cold. It's not. Then I walked out the door, with the box in my hands. Titan Fitness, where lies go to die. The gym parking lot was half empty when I pulled up. I parked near the back, out of sight of the security cameras. Then I popped the glove compartment, pulled out my gloves, and slipped them on. The box sat in the passenger seat, waiting. I opened it. Inside, nestled in old, worn cloth, was something I hadn't touched in years. A set of brass knuckles. A gift from Eric back when we used to handle problems in a more direct way. I ran my fingers over the metal, feeling the weight of it. Familiar. Solid. A promise. Then I shut the box, tucked it under the seat, and stepped out of the car. I walked into the gym like I belonged there. No one stopped me. No one questioned me. And when I saw him, standing near the weight rack, laughing, flexing for some girl, I felt something dangerous unfurl in my chest. He didn't see me at first, but when I stopped a few feet away, hands in my pockets, eyes locked on him, he felt it. He turned. His cocky smirk faltered. Just a little. I tilted my head. Vlad. He blinked, like he was trying to place me. Then he frowned. Do I? You know who I am. A pause. Then I saw it. Realization. His body stiffened, but he tried to play it cool. Look, man, I punched him. Hard. The impact snapped his head back. He stumbled, knocking over a bench, groaning as he hit the floor. The gym went silent. I cracked my knuckles. Slowly, he lifted his head, touching his split lip, eyes wide. Are you crazy? I crouched down in front of him, and for the first time all night, I smiled. Buddy, I said, my voice low, you have no idea who you just fucked with. His breathing hitched. Good, because tonight, he was going to learn. Silence spread through the gym like a slow-moving wildfire. Every set of eyes in the building locked onto me, onto Vlad, onto the blood trickling from his split lip. I could feel it, the weight of their stares, the tension in the air, the way everything in this moment was teetering on a razor's edge. Vlad blinked up at me, stunned. He lifted a hand to his mouth, pulling it away to see red smeared across his fingers. A flicker of disbelief crossed his face, like he couldn't quite comprehend that someone, me, had just dropped him in the middle of his own gym. Then, slowly, he scowled. You crazy piece of shit, he muttered, pushing himself up onto his elbows. I smiled. The kind of smile that wasn't friendly. The kind of smile that made men like him think twice before opening their mouths again. Get up, I said, my voice calm. Too calm. His eyes narrowed. What? I took a step closer, towering over him. I said, get up. A muscle in his jaw ticked. He glanced around, saw the gym staff hesitating near the counter, saw the way no one was moving in to stop this, because they wanted to see where this was going. And so did I. Vlad wiped his mouth and stood, shaking out his shoulders, trying to play it off like he wasn't rattled. You got a problem with me, old man? He asked, straightening to his full height. He was big, built, stronger than me, on paper, but strength didn't mean shit when you didn't know how to use it. I smirked. Old man? That's funny, coming from a guy who spends his time chasing after married women like some desperate high school punk. His cocky facade faltered. Just a little. Bingo. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, he said, but his eyes betrayed him. He knew exactly what I was talking about. I tilted my head. You don't. No, he said, voice firm. I don't. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. His face changed immediately. I turned the screen toward him. The messages, the pictures, his words. A slow, creeping fear slithered into his expression. I let him read for a few seconds before I spoke. You want to try that again? I asked, because I'd hate to go through the trouble of printing these out and showing everyone what kind of guy you really are. His nostrils flared. Look, man, I didn't do anything wrong. I moved fast. Before he could react, I grabbed the front of his shirt and yanked him forward, slamming him against the nearest weight rack. Dumbbells clattered to the floor, a few people gasped, and for the first time, real panic filled his eyes. No, I said, my voice a low growl. You didn't do anything wrong? He swallowed hard, hands gripping my wrists, but he didn't push me off. Because he knew. He knew he had stepped on the wrong landmine. You don't talk to another man's wife like that. I continued, voice just loud enough for him to hear over the pounding of his own heart. You don't send messages like that. You don't call her baby. You don't ask to see her at night. You don't touch what isn't yours. I didn't. I shoved him harder against the rack. He let out a choked sound, panic flashing across his face. You think you're untouchable, huh? I whispered, leaning in close. You think just because you've got a pretty face and a few thousand followers, you can get away with anything? I let go suddenly, and he stumbled forward, catching himself. His hands curled into fists. And for a second, I saw it, the flicker of fight in his eyes. Good. I rolled my shoulders, stepping back, giving him space. Go ahead, I said, spreading my arms. Make your move. He hesitated. I could see the gears turning in his head. He wanted to hit me. He wanted to prove something. But there was something else there too, Doubt. He wasn't a fighter. He was a poser. A guy who built himself for the camera, not for real life. I chuckled, shaking my head. That's what I thought. His chest rose and fell sharply. You're insane, he muttered, taking a step back. Maybe, I admitted. But at least I don't pretend to be something I'm not. His lip curled. You should be mad at her, not me. I nodded slowly. Oh, don't worry. I am. Something about the way I said must have unnerved him, because he shifted his weight, licking his lips, eyes darting toward the exit. He wanted to get away, but I wasn't finished yet. I stepped forward, lowering my voice. Listen to me, and listen carefully. If I ever see you near her again, if I ever catch you talking to her, texting her, even thinking about her, I leaned in close so only he could hear. I'll make sure you never lift a weight again. He swallowed hard. I held his gaze for a long moment, waiting, watching. Then slowly he nodded. Smart boy. I took a step back, rolling my shoulders. Exhaling like this was just another workout. Then, without another word, I turned and walked out of the gym. And just like that, Vlad Morozov was done. The aftermath. By the time I got back to the house, it was late. I parked in a driveway, but didn't go inside right away. Instead, I sat there, staring at the front door at the house I had built with a woman who wasn't mine anymore. I felt different, still angry, still betrayed. But something had shifted. I had faced him. I had made my move. And now it was her turn. I grabbed my duffel bag from the back seat and stepped out of the car. Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I found Lena sitting on the couch, curled up with a blanket around her shoulders, staring at the wall like she'd been frozen in place since I left. She turned when she heard me. You came back, she whispered. I dropped the duffel bag near the door, crossing my arms. For now, a flicker of something. Asterisk, asterisk relief, hope, desperation. Asterisk, asterisk crossed her face. She started, but I cut her off. Don't, I said, my voice flat. Not yet. She swallowed hard. What did you do? I smirked just a little. Had a conversation. She shuddered, rubbing her arms. I didn't mean to. I held up a hand. Lena, I said, staring straight at her. I don't care what you meant to do. I care about what you did. Her lip trembled. For the first time all night, she looked genuinely scared. Good, because she wasn't going to like what came next. I stood there in the doorway, the weight of the night pressing down on me. The house was still, thick with silence, but beneath it, I could feel something brewing. Lena sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that wasn't doing a damn thing to hide the guilt in her eyes. She looked small, fragile, almost like she was waiting for me to deliver a verdict she already knew was coming. I let the silence hang between us. Let her squirm. She was the first to break. You. Her voice was hoarse, hesitant. You went to see him, didn't you? I exhaled through my nose, rolling my shoulders like I was shaking off the last bit of tension from my fight with Vlad. My knuckles still ached, but it was a good ache. I stepped further into the room, my movements slow and deliberate, letting her feel the weight of them. Yeah, I said, finally, my voice calm. Too calm. I did. She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the edges of the blanket. What did you do? I smirked. Had a little chat. Her throat bobbed. A chat. I tilted my head, watching her. Yeah, let's call it that. She flinched. She didn't ask for details. She didn't need to. She knew me well enough to fill in the blanks. A shaky breath left her lips. I didn't want this to happen. That set me off. I let out a bitter, humorless laugh. Oh, you didn't want this to happen? I gestured around the room. Well, that makes it all better, Lena. I feel so much better knowing this wasn't what you wanted. She blinked, eyes wide, caught off guard by the sharp edge in my voice. I mean it. Stop. I cut her off, my voice firm. She snapped her mouth shut. I walked over to the chair across from her and sat down, leaning forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Studying her. You lied to me, I said slowly, my voice devoid of emotion. Over and over again. You made excuses. You dismissed me. You let some gym rat bastard talk to you like you belonged to him. And you let it happen for months. She flinched at that. Good. I kept going. And even now, you're sitting there, wrapped in a damn blanket, acting like you're the victim. Her breath hitched. I never said. I laughed, shaking my head. No, you don't have to. You just wanted to feel bad for you. You wanted to look at you and think, she's sorry, she didn't mean it. Maybe I should forgive her. She didn't deny it. I leaned in closer. But here's the thing, Lena. My voice was lower now, almost a whisper. I don't forgive you. Her whole body seemed to tremble at those words. She sucked in a sharp breath, her lips parting like she was about to beg. I didn't give her the chance. You want to sit there and tell me this wasn't cheating? I gestured to the phone in my pocket. Then tell me, what the hell was it? What do you call hiding messages? Sending him pictures? Letting him talk to you like you were his. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Nothing. Because she didn't have an answer. Because there wasn't one. I exhaled, leaning back in my chair. That's what I thought. She dropped her head into her hands, shoulders shaking. No. I interrupted. Don't say you're sorry. She looked up, her eyes red. Why? I met her gaze. Because you're not. Her lips trembled. She didn't deny it. The choice. I sat there, watching her, waiting. Then I spoke again, slow and deliberate. You have two choices. She froze. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees, staring straight at her. 1. I leave, and you never see me again. We're done. You deal with the fallout. You explain to everyone why your husband walked out on you in the middle of the night. You pack up your influencer dreams and tell your little gym buddies why I'm not around anymore. Maybe you even call Vlad. See if he wants to pick up where you left off. Her breath caught. Or 2. I exhaled, shaking my head. I stay. But things don't go back to normal, Lena. Not ever. She swallowed, her throat bobbing. What does that mean? I held her gaze. It means you earn me back. She stared at me like she didn't understand the words. Like they didn't make sense. I let the silence stretch, then continued. No more social media. No more gym selfies. No more fitness obsession. You drop it. All of it. Her mouth opened, but I kept going. No more texting men behind my back. No more laughing at their jokes. No more messages at 2 in the morning. She flinched. And most of all, I leaned in, my voice a low growl. You never lied to me again. Her breathing was shallow now, her hands gripping the blanket so tight her knuckles went white. I tilted my head. So what's it going to be, Lena? Silence. She didn't answer right away, and that told me everything. She wasn't sure. She wasn't ready to give it all up. I stood up, slow and deliberate. Yeah, I muttered. That's what I thought. I picked up my duffel bag and slung it over my shoulder. Lena's face paled. Wait. I turned toward the door. She scrambled to her feet, the blanket falling off her shoulders. You can't just... I glanced back at her. Can't what? Her lips parted, but she hesitated. And that was it. That moment. That pause. That flicker of uncertainty. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't fighting for me. She was fighting for what I represented. Security. Stability. The life she had before she got caught. I clenched my jaw. Then I walked out the door. She didn't chase me. She didn't stop me. Because deep down, she knew she lost me the second she picked up that phone and texted him back. The road ahead. The night was cold, but it felt good. I got in my car, tossed the duffel in the back seat, and sat there for a long time. The weight in my chest wasn't gone. Not yet. But something was different. Something was lighter. I pulled out my phone and deleted her number. Then I did the same for Vlad's, just for good measure. And when I started the engine and pulled away from the house for the last time, I didn't look back. Because Lena was the past. And I was finally free.